Hi folks, I'm Nikki Kaufman. I'm the Director of Events at Parnassus Books. We're delighted to share tonight's event featuring author Sara Evans with you. Just as a reminder, you can order signed copies of Born to Fly from Parnassus at parnassusbooks.net. Tonight, Sara will be joined in conversation by Kelly Sutton. I'm so pleased to turn it over to Sara and Kelly.
Hi, hey
everyone. How are you?
I'm so great. It's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm awesome. I've been having the best couple of days just talking about this book and going down memory lane.
I love it so much. Okay, so everybody that's here, thank you so much for joining us. You know this lovely lady, Miss Sara Evans. I'm just going to brag on you for a second because I know you're not one to brag on yourself, but CMA, ACM, Billboard Awards, 7 million albums, who's counting? We are. And now you've got this book. I just have to ask right off the bat, why did you decide to write this? What was the inspiration?
Well, about 4 years ago, the publisher came to me and said, are you interested in writing a book? Because I had co-written 3 novels, back in like 2004, 2005, something like that. And they said, if so, what would you want to write about? And I thought, I feel like I'm too young to write an autobiography. There's still so much to be done and told. So I thought, well, why don't I just write sort of an advice book about parenting, fashion, all the things that I've learned, raising 3 kids on the road, juggling, all of that, handling divorce, blah, blah, blah. So I started out doing that. Well, in order to do that, I had to really tell a lot of backstories, like where I came from, why I feel the way that I feel about things. And then the publishing company kept pushing me towards the memoir. They're like, we really think this is the way to go because your story is so fascinating. And, I think when you're living your own life, so you don't really see it the way that other people see it, but there has been so much drama in my life from the day I was born. And so that's what they were really interested in. So I decided just to write a memoir and pick out what I thought were the best stories of my life, the most interesting. Some of them are terrifying. I've had 3 near-death experiences, which I talk about in the book. And then kind of the second half of the book is advice. It's like me kind of giving you unsolicited advice about being a stepmom, lots and lots of things.
Well, let's dive right in because you brought it up. I've known you for years and talked to you many times. I did not know until I picked this up and started reading it about the accident you had. You were 8, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, tell everybody this story because to me, I don't know. I feel like if that happens to you, it changes you forever. You're never, ever going to be the same after an accident like that.
Right. So I grew up on a farm. I'm the middle child of 7 kids. We're from central Missouri. When I was 4 years old, we moved to my mom's dream home, which was this huge, old 1800s farmhouse that she remodeled. And we all had motorcycles, my brothers and I. So I have 2 older brothers and 4 younger sisters. So me being the first girl, I wanted to be right there with my brothers with everything they did. So my parents let me have this Yamaha 80 motorcycle. One day in the summer, my mom and brother and a hired guy were working on a tractor, and I had been playing with my dolls and, playing pretend. Something got into my head that I wanted to get on my motorcycle, ride down to the end of the driveway, cross the highway to get the mail. And, something that of course I would never be allowed to do. So I just snuck down there. And I remember, getting off my bike, standing at the side of the road. And I thought I heard a car, but in my 8-year-old brain, I thought, I have plenty of time, I can make it. So our driveway was at the bottom of 2 steep hills, windy country roads. It was actually a neighbor of ours. She was flying into town, going 75 miles an hour. She was late for work, and it hit me on my left side. And so hit me in the legs, flipped me up onto the hood of the car. And then it threw me 80 feet in the air. They went up, turned around, started up our driveway screaming, we hit Sarah, because her son was with her. So he got out of the car and was running, yelling to my mom. So my mom took her flip-flops off and ran down our gravel driveway barefoot, just obviously hysterical. And they couldn't find me. And, when they did find me, I was all like curled up in a ball, and my left leg was almost severed. The bone was sticking out, but amazingly, I had no internal injuries, and I just had, broken legs, broken arms, and a severe concussion. But I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. It took up my whole summer, and, had many, many surgeries on my legs, and it was really, really awful. And, threw my family and my extended family into just a whirlwind of, somebody having to be at the hospital all the time. I was the third of 5 at that time. So my mother had my 2 little sisters at home. She was only 32 at the time. So yeah, it did change me.
And I wanted to underline this in the book because I loved what you said, that there were so many people in your town that were coming up to you and saying, God was with you. God did a miracle in you, and there's a purpose for you to be there. And you said, suddenly I believed it. I developed an understanding that God did have a purpose for me, and it settled in as something I knew to be true. I think this is amazing because, number one, you're coming off of this traumatic, terrifying experience, but then also to have the wherewithal at 8 to all of a sudden have like this aha moment that, okay, there's a calling on my life. Did you know at that moment that calling was going to be music?
Yes. My mom put us on stage when I was 4. She recognized that my brothers and I had, really amazing musical talent, and my mother, just being the entrepreneur that she was and the hard worker that she is, she bought us music equipment. She put a band around us. She started booking us, to play shows in bars, at fairs, festivals, trying to get us on television, and also being farmer at the same time. So I'm so grateful that my mother, really pushed us. But by the time I was 8 years old, I had already become like a little local celebrity. I'd spent 4 years on stage already entertaining people. So I knew that, and it's probably why at 8 years old, I realized, I sort of have this kind of, where God and I are like winking at each other, and he's like, I got you. And I've always thought, and I have you too, meaning I'm going to do everything I can to, be the best person I can be and love people well. And so that's just kind of always been our pact.
I love that. You were playing with the family band. You guys were out doing all these gigs. What did you learn from being on stage at such a young age? Because, we are in Music City, and there are so many people that want to pursue music, and there are so many kids in this town that are pursuing music. So what did you learn by being on those stages and in those situations when you were that young?
It just taught me how to be an entertainer. And honestly, by the time I moved to Nashville when I was 19, and when I got my shot to sing for the president of RCA Records, I was completely a seasoned performer and artist. And I had the utmost confidence in that. So I'm so grateful that I learned how to lead a band, how to, pick the songs and put them in the keys that I want and arrange them the way that I want. And it also made me, a better producer and writer, because I spent my life covering music. And, my mom and I would pick out, what songs are we going to do in the band? What songs are we going to play? And so it taught me so much about leading a band.
I also want to know, do you think that it helped you learn to read people? Because I can imagine, like, from one venue to another, like, you're walking up and you're like, okay, these are traditional country people, we're going to do some Loretta, we're going to do some Dolly. Or if you walk into another situation, you're like, nope, this is REO Speedwagon, we're going to pull out some Eagles. Like, did you have that type of situation where you're starting to read the room and figure out how to make it work?
Yes, and that is such a great question, and no one's asked me that yet, and I haven't ever really thought about that, but absolutely. I learned how to read a room and read people and understand, how to put a set list together where I'm not, making everybody snore. And so it's like fast song, and then a ballad, and then totally. And learning how to read people in that way also kind of it was detrimental to me, I think, in some ways, because it turned me into a people pleaser, completely performance based mindset. So I equated, people love me when I sing great, when I perform great, when I'm skinny, when I'm pretty, instead of sort of, thinking, well, I'm loved no matter what. So I struggled with that a little bit.
We're going to come back around to that because I have a lot of questions, and I know that there are people that are out there that are probably going, yeah, I see where this is headed. But before we get there, I want to just talk about, and I read your book the first time, and then I went back through, and I don't know how I missed the part about you having to pay to leave college. So you went to college, you had a scholarship, you're there, you're so miserable that you talked the dean into letting you out, but he's like, but you owe us money. And you had to go get a loan.
It's literally the opposite of the college scandal. With Felicity Huffman, it's like they paid to, get their kids in. I paid to leave. I got a full ride scholarship in music to Central Methodist College in Fayette, Missouri, which was a really great, private school. But, my life leading up to that was polar opposite of what a college student is. I had already been on stage. I had already lived this very full life, full of drama. I was 18 going on 45. And also I didn't have money. And this was an expensive school. So as soon as I got there, I was like, I don't have these clothes, from the Limited or, Izod or whatever, any of that stuff. And I just felt very out of my realm. And also majoring in music, immediately I had to take, week one of music theory, and they were trying to get me to sing differently and take away my twang, and I was miserable. And so my brother Matt he was actually in school in Hollywood at the time at Musicians Institute of Technology studying jazz bass. And he was on break and he came to visit me at school, and we were sitting on the picnic table, and I just was bawling, crying to him. And he said, just quit. You don't have to go to college. And, I strongly feel that way to this day. College is not for everybody. College does not, make you smarter. It doesn't, there are so many people who need to not go to college and go into a trade or, something like that. I was one of those people. So when I, said I was going to leave, I guess my scholarship was no longer, valid or whatever. So I owed $400. Well, $400 at that time in my life was impossible. No, who has $400? And so I got a loan at the little bank in New Franklin, Missouri, got the money, took it to Central Methodist, and then I paid off that loan.
I've never heard, yeah, you had a college loan, but not the traditional college loan.
That was my student loan.
I'm leaving. Here's your money. Bye-bye. So
yeah,
you end up coming to Nashville. And I want to talk about this too, because your parents got divorced, both got remarried. You're coming to Nashville. And then something happened to where Matt decided he was going to go and stay with your dad for a while. That Matt was like your constant. Matt has been with you from the very beginning. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about what that did to you, because that had to be a scary feeling. All of the male figures that have been around you, and now you're by yourself in Nashville.
Absolutely. It was my fault though. So what happened was we moved to Nashville together. I started waiting tables at Holiday Inn on Bradley Parkway. That's where I met my ex-husband. And so, he was 8 years older than me. And I don't know, I just immediately started spending all of my time with him. But during that time, my Papa Floyd passed away. And when we went to the funeral, I don't know, something sort of happened to Matt. He was questioning what he believed. It really rocked his world. We were so close to my Papa. And I think, and so at that time, my dad was joining a religion. My brother was interested in it. I was spending all of my time with my ex, and I was really, I sort of abandoned him in that regard. And so he was just like, you know what, I'm not feeling it in Nashville. I'm going to move to Dallas and live with my dad for a while and see what I think about life and religion, many other things.
Right.
And I think Matt was really, missing my dad and wanting to spend time with him. So Matt ended up staying there for 7 years. I ended up getting married during that time. I got my record deal during that time. And then when Matt moved back to Nashville, he started playing bass for me. And then eventually, not long after that, became our musical director. And so Matt and I have been best friends since we were born. And even though that was the longest time we've ever been separated, there was a purpose and a reason for it. But we've been together ever since then. And he's been on stage with me for every show.
I love that. I love that. I want to jump ahead because, you said that a lot of people ask you for advice. And I'm sure that that's probably one of the questions that comes up time and time again, especially you came here when you were 19 and we're going to talk about how you got that deal and singing for Joe Galante. But when you tell somebody, you have to be willing to give up something that other people aren't. In fact, I have it written down. You say, what are you willing to sacrifice that others aren't willing to sacrifice? Is that a piece of advice someone gave you? Or is that something that you just realized one day?
I realized it because when I was growing up, almost every weekend was spent on stage. There were times when I would cry because we had shows booked and I couldn't go to a party or to a school dance. And it was just a sacrifice that my mother and my brothers, thought this was necessary. And I think that's so true. I mean, this is my policy that I always talk about with my kids. I have a closed door policy, sorry. It's an open door policy. I said that wrong. I thought of this, when Avery was about 8 or 9 years old. And I just said, when you're young, and especially when you graduate high school, you have all these open doors. Every door is open. And you want to be careful not to close too many of those doors too soon in your life. Meaning, so this is a door open like marriage. You don't want to close that door too soon before you really have a chance to live, have a chance to know who you are and who you should pick. And you do have to sacrifice what other people aren't. So when you're out on the road every weekend, your friends are home grilling out and watching the football game, you're working. But you have to, ask yourself, is it worth it? Because there are a million other people that want your position.
Can I go get my kid and bring her down here and have you say that to her?
Yes.
Because that needs to be, I wrote that down, underlined it. It has a tab beside it because that's some amazing advice. And
well, it's true. Because I got married too young the first time around. When you have children from a marriage that didn't, that ended in divorce, it's difficult to say that you regret that because, obviously my children are my life and they're amazing human beings, and what they got from both of us is what makes them spectacular. However, I do believe that I was, too young to get married. I was disciplined though. I didn't have a baby until I had my first #1 record. That was my rule that I put in my head, #1 record, and then you can have a baby.
Well, and let's go to that since you brought it up. The day that you found out you were pregnant and you called to tell your team, the response was less than happy. So
right.
Walk us through what that moment was like.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say exactly what the person said because I want people to read the book and
right.
Get it. But I will just say it was a terrible response from a manager that was working with me at the time. And I was so excited. My career was, you know, on the upward swing. And so I was like, it's fine for me to have a child. And so the way that he responded absolutely infuriated me, and it hurt me. And it goes back to what I said about being a people pleaser. But I had enough wherewithal. I'm two different people. In my career, I'm a strong woman. My personal life, I'm a lot more submissive, kind of, you know, not always demanding what I want. But I fired him the next day because I just thought, this is toxic. And how dare you respond to me this way?
Right. No, that's amazing. Well, and I think that I just, you know, as a female in the entertainment industry, on the fringe of it for what I do in journalism, knowing that that has been said to so many people, not just in music, but entertainment across the board.
Right.
We're afraid you're not going to lose the baby weight. We're afraid that you're going to take too much time off. You've got this momentum. Don't take your foot off the gas pedal because people are going to forget about you. All of those things being perpetuated and being said have happened forever. The fact that you knew that was the line in the sand and that you had the wherewithal to stand up and tell him that and then fire him, good on you. Because there's so many people that would be terrified, like, this is my career. If I say that, am I shooting myself in the foot?
Absolutely. And I understand it. So it's, you know, it's not that I'm, you know, angry with men or anything like that, because it's just is the way God designed it. We have the children. So if we want to be sort of a product, which we are when we agree to sign a record deal and make records and put them out, you know, they have invested a lot of money in you. So it is in their best interest that you are available, that you look great. You know, it just is the way it is. And I understand that. But I think my mother bear instinct was already so strong, even though I had just found out I was pregnant. And you don't F with someone's kids. You don't talk about someone's kids. You don't go there. Children are off limits. And so when that, you know, decision that I made to get pregnant and start a family was something that bothered him, I knew that how could I ever work with this man and give him a percentage of what I worked so hard for?
This is exactly right. So everybody that's watching out there, if you're thinking about getting in the entertainment business, be strong. Get the mama bear.
Be strong, and you'll get through it. You really will. And, you know, I had a further, you know, after Avery was born, my other manager made the mistake of saying, you know, the label wants to know, like, how quickly do you think you can lose the weight? When are you going to be back in shape? And that really, really bothered me. But I told her, I just said, I know that you didn't mean to hurt me by telling me this, but if you ever tell me anything like that again, I will have to fire you, because, you know, I just didn't want anything to mess up the joy that was there after having my child.
Right. And nor should it. It. So kudos to you. Everybody that's watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And we're going to do a Q&A coming up in just a few minutes. So I know somebody out there is probably like furiously writing the questions down. Get ready. And make sure that you get this book. There are some signed copies at Parnassus that you can go and get so that you can read that whole chapter, because you're going to want to read it. But definitely that one, man, that one hit home right there.
Great. Yeah.
I'm feeling it. So you talked about the being on the up and up and the trajectory really starting to take off and having that number one. But I want to back up and talk about getting that deal. Mm-hmm. It had been set up. You were, you know, ready. You walked out and you got to sing for Joe Galante. Mm-hmm. In the audience. You know that this is like your shot. This is like American Idol and The Voice and everything all wrapped into one. Were you nervous?
You know, I really wasn't. I had so much confidence in my singing ability and my ability to, you know, sit in a room with someone and move them to tears. I knew that, you know, it was just, I knew that part of it was going to be great. I was nervous about what I was going to wear and how I was going to look, because I had no money. And I think I got a credit card at Express and I went and bought some black dress. I mean, I had no style until after Avery was born, but I did bring Joe Galante to tears. I sang 3 songs. One of them was called One Girl Cried. And, you know, I saw him looking over at Renee Bell, the A&R lady who, you know, really discovered me. And she just sort of looked back at him like, I told you. And so I knew the meeting went well, but this is how naive I was. I asked Joe Galante, because we did have other labels that were after me as well. So I didn't feel like this is my only shot, because like MCA was interested, Capitol was interested. I wasn't being arrogant. I just really wanted to know. And I asked Joe Galante, I said, what can RCA Records do for me? And he liked that. And he just kind of sat back and he said, well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you what we can do for you. We have a promotion staff, blah, blah, blah. And then that afternoon, he signed me to a 7-album record deal.
Okay, for those that are not familiar with the music industry, that is like winning the lottery. That is the thing that you're working for, everybody wants. That is the holy grail, is the 7-record deal.
Yeah.
And how quickly after you signed that, the ink was dry, how quickly did things change for you?
Not as quickly as I wanted. You know, I was such a fan of Dwight Yoakam, and I was trying to figure out like what kind of record do I want to make to hit the scenes and be different. And so I decided to go to LA and use Pete Anderson to produce my first album. I had written almost all the songs. And so we made an album called 3 Chords and the Truth, and came back to Nashville. We were so excited. We had all these listening parties. I was getting all this critical acclaim from the press, you know, like, oh my God, best new album, blah, blah, blah. Country radio would not play it. They would not play 3 Chords and the Truth. And there's no more country song than that. So that was when I really realized, oh wow, this is my struggle. This is how you win the lottery, is by getting your songs played on country radio. So it wasn't really until my next album, 3 Chords, No Place That Far, that's when my career, you know, really took off, and I had the #1 record. And so we were sort of on our way then, but country radio has never made it easy for Sara Evans, ever.
And why is that?
I don't know. You know, there are so many things that go into getting your record played. You have an entire promotion staff at the label. You have different regions. And so, you know, it could be something as simple as one of the promotion guys made one of the radio guys angry. And so he said, you know, I'm not going to play the Sara Evans song because I'm not going to give him his ad. It could be that. It could be, you know, one time I was in an elevator with a program director, and I have such a fear of getting stuck in an elevator. So the only way to get through it is to look at my phone. And I said to him, I said, I'm not being rude, but I'm just going to look at my phone while we're on this elevator. He thought I was being rude and said, I'll never play another Sara Evans song again. So it's just, you know, it's a very, you know, delicate tightrope that you walk. But I worked for every hit record that I had, and I would go see them. I would sing for them. I would do shows for them, take them out to dinner. And I just really wanted them to believe in me. And they did. I mean, they were great. I became famous because of country radio, but I never was that automatic ad that you dream of being, like a Tim McGraw or a Kenny Chesney.
So my question is, when you were young and you were dreaming of hearing your song on the radio and being on a stage in front of people and winning a CMA award or an ACM award, when it finally happened, did it feel the way you thought it would feel?
You know, it's not quite like it is in the movies. There's definitely, like when I won Female Vocalist of the Year, that did feel like I always dreamed it would feel, because I really, really deserved it by then. That was Suds in the Bucket. I'd already, you know, been nominated so many times, and I just always had bad timing. Like Born to Fly was nominated for 7 CMA awards. I would have been eligible for 7 awards, including Producer of the Year. And it was at the same time that Oh Brother, Where Art Thou came out. So that soundtrack was thrown in to compete against artists. So it's just so typical of my timing in my life, but I should have swept those awards based on, you know, our numbers and sales and chart, you know, success. But Oh Brother, Where Art Thou won every single award. I mean, and people talked about it afterwards, like that's not fair, that's able to compete with a single artist. And so that was a bummer, but I did win Video of the Year for Born to Fly, and that was amazing. But after winning Female Vocalist, you know, I went backstage, we were all crying. I called my mom, of course, first thing. You know, she was with my brother, Jay, and he got on the phone. I mean, we were all just like, we did it. And that's how we felt. We felt like we did it because we went all the way back to me as a 4-year-old little girl on stage with my brothers. And so it was and always has been, you know, a family affair. And so when I would have singles that we would put out, like Backseat of a Greyhound Bus is a great example, I couldn't get radio to play that. And it only made it to like number 15 or something. And, you know, every time something like that would happen, like my mom, you know, would cry and she would be like, why don't they like you? Why won't they play you? And I'm like, they do like me, Mom. It's just, it's hard. It's really, really hard.
We need your mom on the team. If your mom was going around saying hi to everybody and saying, play my daughter, that would have been it. That would have been the linchpin right there.
He could convince them for sure. My mother is a brilliant woman. And, but you know, it affected our whole family. And then, you know, even when I would have, you know, like I released A Little Bit Stronger, that was a two-week number one. And then after that, I released My Heart Can't Tell You No. And they wouldn't play that. So, you know, my children have sat with me while I've cried and been so upset. And then the whole thing with, you know, bro country coming onto the scenes and women just being, you know, like kicked out. I hear that it's getting better, but, you know, it has been a family affair, that's for sure.
Well, I definitely love the fact that you've come out on the other side of this. And I do want to talk about family now. The family that you have now that you are in the middle of is fun and wild and crazy and kids, and Avery's in college or off. He's now in East Nashville, right? He's doing.
Yeah, he's not in college. He followed my lead. And
that's right. That's right. He's playing music. He's playing music. But to go and look at where you started and then where you are today,
mm-hmm.
What do you feel like has been the key to your happiness?
A lot of things, but I will say number one, aside from, you know, being born again, I got saved when I was 21 years old. So aside from my relationship with God, which sounds so cliche, but it really is what I depend on to get through anxiety or, you know, whatever. My children give me the greatest joy of my life, and I'm so proud of them, and I love them so much. I love who they are. They're 21, 17, and 15. You know, they're smart, they're kind, and I'm the most proud of that. So that's what keeps me the happiest, is my family. But I also love being on stage. Honest to God, I would do 200, 300 shows a year if I could. Right now we do about 80 shows a year. I would rather be on stage and on the tour bus than anywhere else. And my kids are the same way. They grew up on the bus. That's where they're most comfortable. But we love the fans. We love being with the fans and, you know, being with my band and with my crew. So that is the other thing that really and truly makes me happy, is still singing. And I feel like I'm a better singer today than I was, you know, with Born to Fly. So the joy is even more than it's ever been.
love this. This just makes me so happy. So everybody that's joining us, thank you so much for hanging out with us. As I mentioned, we're going to take some Q&A, some questions. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little symbol. I didn't even know this was here until Nikki told me. So there's a little button that has Q&A. If you'll write your questions in there, and then I'll read some of those and we'll get to those in a minute. But one thing that we didn't touch on that I think is so huge, and again, I think you're so very brave for writing this book and writing it without pretense, without sugarcoating it. I mean, all the stories are in here and you are very raw and very real. So thank you for being that. But there is a story that we talked about before, you and I, just where you were on top of the world. Things were amazing. You had a nanny, you had, this family that was growing. You were killing it, really. But you had like a panic attack. You were in the back of a car and you knew you were falling apart.
Yeah.
What was that moment like, and how did you recognize? Was that depression? Was that anxiety? Was it just all of it together?
Yeah. So I had just had my third child. In 2004, she was born. 2005, we did over 300 appearances. I made and co-produced Real Fine Place to Start, that album. So we launched that album, which, an album launch takes you all over the country. I mean, it is serious business and work. And so we did that. I also made a Christmas album. I was on tour with Brad Paisley, and, having 3 babies that traveled with me all the time. Also, my marriage was falling apart at that time. And so we were in New York City doing press for Real Fine Place, and we had done a show that night. The rest of the band and crew went on to Pennsylvania, and I was gonna, get in a car service and go meet my nanny and my kids on the bus. The night before, I was with my sister in the hotel room, and I kept telling her, like, I'm feeling really weird. I'm feeling super anxious, scared. I feel like I'm detaching from my body. My 2 sisters are my best friends in the whole world. And so Leslie completely got it and understood it. She was singing harmony for me at the time. So we were together all the time. We slept together in the bed. I basically made her spoon me all night because I was just so scared and I didn't know why. Got up the next morning and I had to go by myself in the car service. She had to go earlier. And I was just, freaking out. All of a sudden I decided to put down the mirror, and I looked at myself and I did not recognize myself. I didn't know who I was. And now I know it's something called depersonalization, which is a symptom of severe anxiety, stress, pressure, all of that. So I had a complete mental break, like completely. I was scared to death. And I had to go on stage that night. And as soon as I got to the bus, I told my nanny, I said, let's get in the runner's car and let's go to a bookstore. So we took the kids, we went to a bookstore. I got a Bible because I didn't have a Bible on the road with me. And I still have that Bible to this day, but I just started reading and, trying to find verses, any verse about peace and don't be afraid. And the Bible says more than anything, do not be afraid, do not fear. But I was broken and I kept having this wave of panic come over me, and I would run off the bus. I just ran off the bus and call my mom or whatever, just freaking out. And that night on stage, I kept turning around and looking at my brother to see if he was real, if I was real, what was happening. And somehow I managed to get through 2 or 3 more shows. And then we went back to Nashville. And I took a break, and I just met with my pastor a lot and decided that I was exhausted, just completely exhausted. And so I went to see a doctor, and he gave me some anti-anxiety medication, and that really helped me because that made me realize, so I can take this pill and I calm down. So there's not something broken. I'm not going to be like this forever. And it just took, time to heal, but I did have severe PTSD from that because it was like a mental trauma that happened to me, and that had to heal, and it did, thank God. And I know now how to deal with it and how to kind of keep it at bay, but I can't get too overwhelmed in my life.
You know what? And I think that the fact that you found the boundaries, that you know what your boundaries are, I mean, again, that goes back to knowing who you are and what you need to do to keep you happy and to keep you safe. And I think that that's incredible. But thank you for including that in the book, because I think a lot of people probably are going through things, and especially
Absolutely.
now. Oh, especially now. Oh my goodness. Okay, we've got Q&As coming in. Let me check it out. Hi, Larry. Larry is with us. Larry says, what fellow artists were the most friendly and generous to you during your career? Oh, you've got a good story in here about Reba.
Yes, Reba was awesome. And, we did the Girls Night Out tour with Reba. She was always so sweet and kind and took time, to talk to us after the shows. But my favorite artist that I've ever toured with and worked with is Kenny Chesney. I literally toured with him, I think, for like 4 years straight. And we, there were all these rumors all the time that Kenny and I were having an affair and all that. We were just simply really, really great friends. He is such a pro. He treated us so well on tour. He was incredibly generous. I also really enjoyed working with Rascal Flatts, opening for them. They gave me a Jeep at the end of the tour. They gave me a Jeep that was all decked out in Alabama stuff. Can you believe that? And I got them all watches.
The Flats boys coming together for a Jeep. Okay, that's pretty good.
I would have to say my fondest memories of touring were Kenny Chesney, and then also we did the Brooks and Dunn. So it was me and Kenny Chesney and Brooks and Dunn, and maybe somebody else, but that was a blast too. But Kenny is such a pro, his whole team, and I miss him. I haven't seen him in so long.
He's kind of just laying low right now. I know. He's gearing up. We'll hear from him soon, as soon as we can go back out on tour. We got another question here from Manuel. Which of your albums is your favorite and why?
The new album is my favorite. I mean, I say, all my albums are like children, but the new album, copy that. And I'm not just trying to promote it. Excuse me. But, as I said, I grew up on stage doing cover tunes, and this is my first and only covers album that I've ever done. We cover 6 decades of music, all of everyone's favorite songs, like Come On Eileen, My Sharona, Patsy Cline, Hank Williams. So I had so much fun making that record. Jared Kay produced it. It's absolutely amazing. My son Avery played all the guitar parts. Olivia sang harmony. So that was just like, the whole family. Aside from that, it would be Restless.
It's a great one. Okay, Trish Todd. Hi, Trish. Thanks for hanging out with us. You have a blended family. Can you talk about how you connected with the children who became your stepchildren, and who do you want to be in their lives? Oh, that is such a great question.
I come from divorce as a child. My parents divorced when I was 12. And I've always believed that step parents are wrong if they try to come in. And so this is typically what happens. Typically, the stepfather lives with the children of his wife, right? And then if he has children, they come back and forth for visitation. So if you're a stepmom and you are married to someone with children and you're living with your children, you have to remember that your husband's children are jealous. They're, because it's hard to have your dad living with other kids. I don't mean they're jealous in a bad way. I mean, I went through that. My dad had stepchildren that lived with him, and I was like, why do they get to live with him and I don't? And so you have to approach all of that with so much love and grace and be so delicate. And so the first thing I did was we moved into a house in Birmingham. The first thing I did was move to Birmingham because I knew that if Jay moved up to Nashville and, you know, left his children in Birmingham, they would resent me forever. So I thought I can do my career from anywhere. We moved to Birmingham. I had all the pillows embroidered with everyone's names on it. So every time his kids came over, it's like, you know, there's my pillow with my name. And I just thought that would symbolize something in their heart. Like, this is my spot and I have a spot here. And then also, I never tried to control them or mother them. I always wanted my role to them. I wanted them to see me as like a fun aunt, or a great family friend who, if they ever need me, I'm there, but I'm not trying to be their mom. I'm not trying to, you know, and also you, if you're a stepmother in that position, you cannot be jealous of the relationship that your husband has with his children. You know, that happens so often and it's so destructive. Right. So just understand that, you know, you're the adult, be the adult, and don't get caught up in all of that, and understand that, you know, my job was to facilitate time with him and his children and make that an awesome time. So every other weekend, every other week in the summer, we played sports. I'm an athlete too, so I was always outside playing sports with them. And it was just fun.
I love that you're offering all of this advice. It's awesome advice. One more question. This one is from Ron. Which chapter of your book do you think is the most reflective of your life?
Wow, probably, you know, anytime I talk about my kids, when I talk about, you know, struggles that I've had with like body image, wanting to be a people pleaser, anxiety, it's all those times where I'm really raw and real, you know, because if nothing else, I want to be authentic. I don't want to be fake. Like you said at the beginning of this interview, you know, why write a book or why even be a human being if you can't be authentic and you can't be honest about who you are and what your struggles are? And so those are all my favorite parts. I mean, probably, you know, one of my favorite chapters is talking about my other near-death experience that you're going to have to buy the book and read about, because I don't want to give it all away, but you know, I made that kind of funny, even though it was so horrific.
You know, there's so much in here, and I know that this is one of those things, after it's done and it's out there, did you feel relieved that it was finished and out to the world, or were you frightened because you were like, oh no, what did I just do?
Oh, I was terrified. I was so afraid, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, or I tend to have night anxiety, you know, so all my worries will start to come on me around 9 o'clock. And so I would go, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I said that about my dad. My brothers are going to be so mad, or my sisters are going to be mad, or my mom's going to be mad. You know, like I tell a couple of stories about how my mom, you know, hurt my feelings once when I was a little girl, and how my dad did as well. Those stories were just meant to say, you know, be careful how you talk to your kids, and, you know, always learn to, well, then I was like, well, shit, my mom's going to be furious when she reads this. So I was terrified. I don't want my family to read it, but I will say when I went in to read it for the Audible book, I was relieved, because as I read the whole thing down out loud, there was nothing in there that, you know, because I had gone back so many times and I'm like, nope, slice that paragraph.
Lots of reading. Hey, I am just so thankful. Thank you for having me and letting me be a part of this. I love this book. I love you. You're incredible. Just everybody that's listening right now, there are signed copies for sale at Parnassus. Support our wonderful bookstore, Parnassus. They do so much for this community. They are amazing. They do wonderful things like this. I can't wait till we get to do more of these in person in the store. It's one of our favorites, so stop by and see them. Is there anything else that we didn't cover, Miss Sara, that we need to say before we let everybody go?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're talking about the book, but what I think is so neat about the timing of everything is that this covers album is out. I really want people to listen to the covers record, because you will, and when you read the book, you'll get a sense of, oh, I totally understand why she recorded that song and how she came to be this artist. And so the covers album is like taking a walk through memory lane alongside of the book. So I'm so happy and grateful, and so grateful to my fans. I have the best fans in the world. And, I really feel like, even though we've been in a pandemic and a quarantine, I feel there's a lift happening. Don't you feel that? Maybe it's like falls in the air, and I just feel really excited about life.
Well, and I think a lot of people are really thinking about the things that they took for granted before, like being able to go into a bookstore and do a Q&A live, that we'll never take that for granted again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll never take being with our loved ones face to face for granted again, hopefully.
For sure. Hey, cheers to you, friend. Cheers to you, right? I know. I saw your drink. I was like,
to drink.
I got this going. Sara Evans, Born to Fly, everybody. Get your copy. Thank you, Ann Patchett. We love you. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, everybody. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Love everyone.
Bye.